So I first picked up a self-help book in 2019, and since then, in the last 2 years, I've read over 100 different books. But I was wrong. I was going about it entirely the wrong way, and I thought about reading books in the wrong way. And that's why I want to make this video today. In this video, let's talk about reading self-help books more intentionally. When we're taught to read books, it's often read this or read that. And therefore, it's really easy to think that, all we have to do is read a book. And somehow, magically, it will change our life. It will either make us more productive, more financially free, or even smarter. But I think that's where the mistake starts. And certainly for me, that's where I went wrong. Reading books isn't so much about the act of reading, because if it were just that, we could look at articles online, we could read tweets, we could read even Instagram captions, and we would be fulfilling our quota for reading. But reading is all about capturing and processing information. It's about what we take away from the book and how do we actually implement some of that stuff into our lives. For example, you could read an amazing productivity book and it could tell you that you need to do X, Y, and Z in order to be more productive. And therefore, after having read this, you could walk about and know that, all you have to do is X, Y, and Z in order to be more productive. But until you take action and until you implement those principles into your lives, you're not actually going to be any more productive than you were before you read the book. So that's where I went wrong about self-help books. I was reading for the sake of reading and for the sake of filling vanity metrics. For example, I was reading a book a week and I was doing this for about 2 years, and I would post it on my Instagram, I would share it everywhere and show everyone that I'm reading so many books and I'm capturing all of this information, but I wasn't really taking any action. I was just going about it for the sake of reading, and that was just so wrong. So with that in mind, in this video, I'm going to tell you why I'm moving away from reading a book a week to reading more intentionally. And by the way, if you're new here, I'm Yath, a medical student and designer from London. And if you do enjoy what you watch, please do subscribe for new videos every single week. And just a quick disclaimer so that I don't annoy anyone, this is just a personal reflection. And for me, I personally don't have the bandwidth to be reading a book a week and to be actually taking some measurable action from those books. And therefore, that is why I'm moving away from that. And I'm going to be reading a lot less and reading more intentionally. But if for you, reading a book a week is absolutely fine and you can really take some action from it, then, keep doing that, because at the end of the day, we should all do what works for us. So reason one for reading less is to read at your own pace. Yes, that sounds a bit silly and it sounds a bit oversimplistic, but let me explain. So when I first started reading books, or when I first started reading a book a week, I would actively go and look at the pages in a book before I picked a book. How silly is that? I would literally go on Amazon and I would look at books and I would see, look, this book has about 300 pages. Therefore, it's a book that I can manage in a week. And therefore, I'd pick all books that were, quite short in length, some 200 pages, some 300 pages, because I knew that way I could fulfill my quota for reading books. And so, yeah, if it takes you 2 weeks to read a book, that's fine. If it takes you 3 weeks, that's fine. If it takes you a month, that's fine. If it takes you a year, that's also fine. But read at your own pace and pick books because you want to actually pick those books, not because, you can read it in a certain time frame. And tying nicely into this is reason number 2, which is all about reading with intention. I can tell you from experience that the best books that I've read are the books that I read with intention. Therefore, the books that I've read whenever I've had a problem, a struggle, or a need to learn something new. For example, when I was looking to network more effectively, I read the book The Third Door by Alex Banayan, and this is a fantastic book. And in this book, there's a lot of stuff about cold emailing, how to reach out to people, how to get people's attention, and I applied a lot of those principles to the way I was reaching out to people, and therefore I saw a lot of real, tangible results from what I was reading. Okay, fine, so read with intention is great, but how do we actually do it? For me, there are 3 questions that I always ask myself before picking a book, and maybe it'll be useful to you as well. So firstly, is this book coming from a trusted recommendation? Why is now the best time to read this book? Will there come a time when this book is perhaps more useful? And I even have an entire video on how I pick books, so feel free to watch that after finishing this one. Okay, so finally, reason number 3 for reading less is to paint the bigger picture. So as I mentioned earlier, I had this mentality where I'd finish reading a book and I'd race on to read the next one without ever stopping to reflect or think about what I just read. But now all I do is reflect. After finishing a book, I don't think about the next book. I think about what is it that I just read, how does it shape my knowledge, how does it all fit into the bigger picture, and what actions am I now going to take? I think painting the bigger picture is a really fantastic tool because it allows you to not only consume and take action on a book in isolation, but you can take action collectively. You can combine different principles from different books, and then you can think to yourself, okay, fine, how does it all fit into this bigger picture of how I consider life and how I would go about doing things? And reflecting is even better because it forces you to ask more questions. You look at books and think, okay, why does this book contradict this book? And therefore, what am I going to take away? And perhaps am I going to read more books to try and understand what is actually going on? And yeah, this process almost definitely takes more time. For me, I sometimes reflect after a week after finishing a book before moving on to the next book. But because I take so much notes, because I summarize things, and because I create actionable points from reflecting, I think that is when I'm gaining the most value from reading books. So just to summarize, going forward, I'll be reading fewer books, and this is because I want to read at my own pace, I want to read with more intention, and I want to reflect more and paint the bigger picture. Finally, if you did find this video useful, then I've created a short playlist over here with some more videos that I think you'll enjoy. As always, stay safe, stay happy, and I'll see you next week.